Hello. I just wanted to pop in with some inspiration and maybe just a image for someone that might be like a different way or like a cool way to think about things. And so I was with family recently, and shout out to my brother. My brother's been helping me do some maneuvering to become independent, and he's really stepped up for me in a big way. And he didn't have too much to say about it, but he had a strong attitude, and he was simply there as I need him. So I want to shout out to him for that. And then I was also going through some effects, and I found this is a little pendant. This is a little pendant I found of the great singer Selena, and she's one of my inspirations because I remember she was influential when I was a child in the Southwest. She was already influential all over the world, but a lot of us, like in the Southwest, she just really resonated with a lot of people of all backgrounds, and she was beautiful and kind of then and to this day, like my concept of like my ideal partner. Like, I think that all of us we have like we have like what's cool to us, but I think somehow in the back of our mind we kind of have like an image of like what our authentic partner is, and that might be loosely related to the most beautiful people that we encountered like at like formative ages. So I grew up like in the Southwest, and I had like some beautiful teachers that at a young age that favored Selena, that I didn't have a snowball's chance in hell of ever having anything to do with, but they were yet beautiful. And then so I met a lot of beautiful people. But what I wanted to lean into with this is to talk about. I had made a couple other videos about like heartbreak, and sometimes, like, I also made a video about, at least for us as men, sometimes as men we can have a feeling about a person, whether male or female, whether in terms of like friendship engagement or romantic engagement, where I think as men we can have a strong feeling for someone or something without having a lot of exposure to it or a lot of background, because I think it might have had to do with in evolutionary terms, we had to have an image about who we're dealing with and who we're encountering rapidly, and take in very fine, subtle cues about what may be their real background, allegiance, or intention and bearing towards us, and how we would respond to that. And then I think that that's for us as men. But then I think for women, it may be even more so, where there's many people who can appreciate that the psyche of a female is very perceptive and can perceive many profound cues about another person on deep levels, that such has been described as the instincts, or what's the word, there's a reference to like like a woman's intuition, I think it's called. But I think another version of that is also similar with men, where we can actually, and that might be for better or worse, where we can really identify with someone or something off of like maybe superficial cues, and that we may or may not be accurate in that, and then we can really actually be ready to go to bat for or against something based on a limited background, limited exposure, and it also might have to do with how men have been recognized to be a little bit superficial and aloof around very significant things, such as entering fighting or entering lovemaking, and being very virile and sincere in that, but also able to walk away and go on about to be superficial about that. So like an example of that might be like maybe like mercenary type of behavior, or like ladies man type of behavior, where it's very serious things that impact oneself and others, but yet engaging it and then disengaging it on maybe superficial or arbitrary context. But all I meant to say is that I'm getting more and more overly sophisticated about almost nothing. But all I meant to say is that we can have a strong feeling towards something based on very deep things, but also very superficial things. And one of them is like falling head over heels when it's not called for. And that kind of happened to me recently. It's happened to me a few different times in my life, but sometimes I find myself falling head over heels for when I against my better judgment and against maturity. But all I meant to say is that sometimes you can meet a person that is so beautiful, and that we it's one of the we talk about like the greatness of a higher power in this reality, but sometimes it really daunts the like when you think about like what are maybe some examples of the greatness of the things that we call greatest, as in like the Most High or the Lord of Hosts and stuff like that, is the beauty of one another would be the highest degree of that, I think. And then maybe the most sublime is when we recognize our identity in another person. That can be seen obviously like with seeing maybe I can't speak as a parent, but I can imagine seeing a child that favors your appearance or the appearance of your lover or the appearance of both of you, no less, as being something that would be really compelling, such as nothing else is compelling. But I would say another version of that can be approaching as strong as that. And then for me, as not being a parent yet, is just to see another human being from the same or different background, heritage, culture, ethnicity, and really recognizing our identity as being one and the same in essence, in that we are a part of and we form the same reality, broadly and totally speaking. Yet we are individual counterparts that are that are complementary. Kind of like the author Arthur Avalon says that the universe is both heterogeneous and homogeneous, which means that it's made of distinct and unique parts that are different, being hetero, and then but then within their heterogeneity, they also form a homogeneity. They're also homogeneous in that they are one whole and one essence. But there would be a limitation had the reality been entirely heterogeneous or homogeneous. So that duality, that complexity is what really is the beauty. So all I meant to say is that when we can see ourselves in another, in ourselves, both people that look like us and don't look like us, people that think like us and don't think like us, people that have experiences like us and don't have experiences like us, that's where the real beauty and the magic of life is. But sometimes you can meet a person and it's like, man, whatever this reality is, it was really getting busy like a long time ago or recently to really make something or someone as beautiful as this person we're experiencing. It's such that sometimes we can actually fall in love with the piece of art, and identify with the piece of art more than the artist, if you'll humor the metaphor. And sometimes that can be daunting, but really challenging, because like, you can find yourself maybe being heartbroken, lovelorn, lonely, so forth, and you have an idea of a beautiful person that you may or may not know, that you may or may not have met, like such as I'm saying, like with our late great Selena. And then that very beauty of that person can kind of haunt you, where you are more daunted and humbled by the beauty of this person above the greater impetus that has conceived that person, fashioned that person, supported that person, and allowed you to encounter that person. And it can be such that you really, we all know that there's a higher impetus in this life that has our best interest and has other things for us, whether or not something or someone works out for us. But it can be very difficult. One of the most difficult aspects of faith is to trust a higher power while we are confronted with something of a degree of that higher power in a more humble situation or personage that is very compelling to us, such that we actually doubt our faith in a higher power. And that's that I'm using some heavy words, but I think we can feel what that means. And all I meant to say is that I wanted to put forth an image of like me. I've been getting myself together in different for different a lot after the pandemic. Somehow the pandemic was almost like a little bit of a rebirth in my life, at least professionally and personally speaking, where I think I'm much stronger and a better person than I was going into the pandemic. But the better aspects of myself that were with me going into the pandemic are still with me. So that's also part of like a rebirthing, is that in this universe, it's been said like by Arthur Avalon that nothing is wasted by our Lord, and that's why what's called the Lord is eternal. But with that being said, when we come into a relationship or just a better, a stronger stance as a person to the point of adopting new values and references for behavior, it can feel like we're dropping what we had been before. But all I meant to say is that in a refashioning or restructuring of our life or our appearance or whatnot, the best aspects of ourselves are kept. And that's also why I think that like when you look at like children, a lot of children, they can be like you wonder like how they can be related to some of the people they're related to. And sometimes we wonder ourselves how we can be related to some of the people we're related to. And maybe other people wonder how they can be related to us as who they are. But all I meant to say is that that's an example of how the best of us is always saved and preserved. So whatever a child is or a person is, they are the best aspects of what has brought them here, and nothing is lost. Even some of the most, a lot of our parents have they've made daunting strides, but they've also had shortcomings that show a lack of self-respect or even respect for their children or their offspring. But yet their offspring can be talented and beautiful, and they themselves are still talented and beautiful. And that's just an example of how there's a deeper reality. Even this reality itself has a deeper essence, and us as a part of it have a deeper essence that is really beautiful and true at its core. And that's within and beyond all of our mistakes, shortcomings, and blemishes, which are more so learning opportunities and venues and standpoints. So I just meant to say to recognize the value that is running through all of our experiences in one another as being unified and transcendent, as we overcome other people's shortcomings around us and our own shortcomings. But all I meant to say is that I'm getting close to starting a new leaf and really walking into independence and a sense of manhood in my late 30s. But some people say better late than never, and I rock with that. And then if you look at like different countries, you look at a lot of different like conflicts like over time, and like what were they really fighting for? What was it really about? You look at like people like maybe like rebels in different periods of history in different regions of the world, and even the maybe the more the more established and professional forces, authorities that may be juxtaposed with the rebels, and the struggle within both of them, whether it's the rebels with a sense of independence, autonomy, and mobility, or the established authorities with a history, a pedigree, but also having to answer orders that may be arbitrary to a higher power or higher standpoint that may actually not have the same experiences in the field. And what I think it would all come down to is what it means to be independent. Is that if you look at like, I'm from the region of Southern Africa, and a lot of these people, these different nations and people have struggled for many years to the current day. And what it has really been about, if we reduce to the common factors, is independence and the ability to make decisions for ourselves and both learn from and receive value from the decisions that we make with our best judgment as they pertain to our destiny. And I think that the struggle is the same even for a traditional or established people, in the struggle for freedom, all of us struggle in the struggle for freedom, whether we're coming from the standpoint of being rebellious or being part of a pedigree. So I just wanted to say that the struggle is real, and it is. I think it's about independence is what it's about for all of us, for all people and all things. The author Arthur Avalon, who I heavily reference, says that he says that one of the highest attainments for a human being is an equitable and kind disposition that amounts to not doing harm. I think in Sanskrit, himsa is harm, so ahimsa is non-harm to any being, and that is the essence of culture and maturity. From that standpoint, and therefore the highest attainment of a human being, generally speaking, being a character that is sattvic, which is I've mentioned the three ever active influences according to that same lineage, being the active component, the sustaining component, and the destructive component. Destructive being also creative in that sense. but the staying power is what's called sattvic, and that is the that is the silver lining running through all of our experiences. Our sustenance, protection, and redemption is that sattva that has been associated with a great personage and deity named Vishnu, or in the greater sense, Mahavishnu, Maha being great. But I just wanted to say that um, so the struggle. So what Arthur Avalon says is that the greatest attainment in a general and personal sense is that disposition, and that's part of upright conduct through a lot of trial is what, and reciprocity and equity through trial and hardship is what amounts to that disposition. But then even the highest bounty, even as a part of that disposition and beyond that disposition, is freedom in itself. Freedom being as a part of, yet greater than even love, sacrifice, all the highest fruits that are fashioned of our long and eternal struggle. Being freedom is the highest degree of that. Some people, like, I was listening. There's a song that came on recently. I was getting back into like playlists, different playlists that I'm not familiar with, like to boost up my repertoire, my own playlist. And there was a song on there talking about that really beautiful people. They're more interested in fun than love, and I would be asinine to argue with that, and I would rather experience that than have to argue with that. But it's much to say that sometimes it's been said, like in other things, like girls just want to have fun, and I think that actually speaks to the fact that freedom, which is that when we're having fun, we're experiencing a degree of freedom, whether that's getting away from fetters or even transcending our own fetters by embracing maybe less than pretty aspects of ourselves, and therefore being genuine and therefore being free. So all I meant to say is that maybe fun is more dynamic and potent than even love, and that maybe love is more of a byproduct or afterthought. As it said, shoot first, ask questions later. Maybe the same goes for fun and love. But if we were to take it like that, then we could say that fun would be closer to freedom. And that's another example of how freedom is the highest attainment and outcome and blessing in reality, and is reality, even beyond our notions of love. So what I wanted to say is that as I'm maybe getting closer to attaining a level of actual independence as a man and as a person, as far as transportation, creativity, like content creation and music, employment, and then education and living accommodations, getting close to lining all those up once and for all. Still humble, but at least with a good footing. Some people might say that a solid footing foundation at the bottom of mountain may be better than a more extended and difficult footing at a higher edge of the mountain, where from the former standpoint, there's a possibility of going past a more extended and uncomfortable footing that may be higher to begin with. So just pointing out the laying a foundation in my life, having come through a lot of hell to go through that, and still likely having to go through more hell, but just appreciating that standpoint in that position. And so I wanted to say is that, I've recently been maybe disappointed or lovelorn in different ways, to the point of being daunted around beautiful people and things that would as soon not have anything to do with me. But I want to say is that as we're maybe moving into a new opportunity for ourselves, and trusting that higher power that really does have our best interest, and it does have strong experiences for us to enjoy, should we choose to do what's right for ourselves and others, which can also just be simply respecting ourselves and others fundamentally. It's almost like, if you can imagine being in a classroom in elementary school, where all the kids, they're more or less content in the classroom, but yet they're under the teacher. They're somewhat subjected, even in a learning setting that's ostensibly for their best interest. But if you can imagine, so you're in elementary school, and it's like, say it's like a language arts class. Now I've become a little bit stronger with language and reading. My worst subjects in school were music and language arts. I could clean up after myself well enough around like math and science and sports and stuff like that, and I enjoyed those. I got a little bit of props for those. But when it came to music and language arts, I never got any kudos from any of my peers. But actually, strangely enough, the only subjects I ever got feedback from from my teachers and my proctors in a unique way, it had to do with music and language arts. I had a music teacher where I was visibly perturbed by having to do work on music. And then my music teacher said, I remember her name was Miss Sari. Shout out to Miss Sari if through some chance of heaven she landed on this video. But Miss Sari told me that, maybe as strange as it sounds, you might actually turn out to be a musician and love music one day. And that at the time I was way more about basketball. I enjoyed music, but I was way more about basketball back then. And that sounded out of left field, but yet it still kind of resonated when she said that. And I didn't think that she was entirely wrong when she said that. And then I also had some feedback for different writing that I did, where I was doing like way superfluous, and I was doing extortions and acrobats around writing. Like we'd be given like a subject to write a sentence about, and then I put on these long, fancy, ornate sentences to get off what I was supposed to express in a sentence. And I got some strong feedback from a teacher with that. And then I once had I responded to, like, in a philosophy class in middle school. I had this response where I was equating our progress as human beings, and then in the late '90s, as being like a car like a fancy fun car, like a sports car that's heading straight for a cliff. And my teacher really appreciated that, and the class did, where I actually overdid it again. But all I meant to say is that my weakest subjects to my own perception were music and language arts, and those have become a little bit stronger for me as an adult, as maybe my stronger subject or inclinations beyond anything I had been good at when I was coming up. But I want to say I can remember some really tedious times in language arts class as a child. And I remember one time it was like I think it was like fourth grade, where I was stuck in language arts class, and my eyes were starting to roam. The last thing I was trying to look at was that book, but yet we were stuck there in silence. And I remember the greatest love of my childhood, my biggest crush of all childhood, and I actually had some uncanny. I crossed paths with that person in an uncanny way a few years later that would really make a person wonder if there's such a thing as like destiny and providence and like strange coincidences and synchronicities, opportunities. But how I meant to say is I was stuck there in that class, and the love of my childhood walked past, because they were in a yet higher language arts, and had like a little bit of liberty to walk the hallway at that moment. And I remember that image. But all I meant to say is, if you can imagine being stuck in a language arts class or stuck in school, and there's like a crush that you have in that class with you, but yet you guys are all stuck there. And as much as you feel for that student, and you recognize that student had to have parents, and their parents are cool with your parents, and from that standpoint, you should really be more concerned about like how your parents feel about you than how that person feels about you, because they have more. Your parents have more pull with your future than that person that you're stuck on a crush with. And like what I'm saying in this video of like falling in love with the artwork more than the artist. Imagine y'all are all stuck in that classroom like that, and then there's a notice from the principal that they're calling you out of class because your parent has something to do with you. Like maybe y'all have to go on a trip out of town for a marriage or something like that, where you're getting up out of there on their you're getting up out of that class on their ass, on your peers and your teachers and all of them that are stuck there, whether the teacher's getting paid to be there, whether the other kids are cooler than you and getting on better with each other, you're still getting out of there on their ass, and you're going off with your parent to do other cool stuff. And I just wanted to put that analogy that for anyone that may be stuck on somebody, but you know that you have a higher power in this life that loves you and cares about you, if you can find the courage to do the right things to line up with what that higher power has for you in store for you, and move with that. At one point, you might find yourself getting escorted out of class while your love interest and your competition are stuck there with each other, and you're going off to do bigger and better things. Not that I shouldn't say better. Well, in that sense, it would be better because they're stuck there. But all I meant to say is that you're doing things that are better for you and that are more to your strong suit. While that situation wasn't for you, that situation didn't have your best interest or anything cool for you going on. As beautiful as the people, or funny as the people were there. So just like a little image of like trusting our big mama and big daddy in this life, when they're taking us up out of class because we had been doing the right things, and we still got love for our friends. Maybe we'll send them a letter. Maybe our new school will have like a pen pal thing going on where we can send them some letters and stuff, and maybe flex some language arts back on them. But for all intents and purposes, we're getting on with what we need to do with our big mama and big daddy. Peace.